Next is encryption. So there's different qualities of encryption. There's, kind of look at this antique key here. That's pretty poor encryption, can be picked pretty easily. Newer keys are much more complex, therefore much more difficult to break into. So whenever you're looking at encryption, you want to have the more complex versions if you can. And encryption is basically just this, you get some text and it converts to something really unintelligible by anyone that doesn't have the key. If someone does have the key, they could translate that text into, if you're storing it, you should be encrypting it. Remember that. If you're storing it, you should be encrypting it. On my machine, I have a Mac. I enable File Vault. Anywhere I travel, I would not travel without File Vault enabled. If my laptop is stolen, there is zero information that can be taken from me because everything on my machine is encrypted. If anyone were to grab it, they can maybe use it. I'd have to go and buy a new one, but I won't lose any information. This is different than password protection. Most of us have a password when we enter on our machine. That doesn't mean that it's encrypted. Password protection is the equivalent of a locked front door and an open back door. You can get in just as well through the back door and get access to the data as it were without encryption. So you need to have encryption. If you're on a Windows machine, there's a great program called TrueCrypt. It is free, and you can encrypt pretty much any information that you might want, including the entire drive. Last is pretty obvious, which is Obfuscate, which is you don't put your safe in the front yard and dare criminals to break in. You need to hide your information. You need to make it obfuscated. This could be things like sending files called credit card numbers.xls, things like this. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I see it all the time. A fax machine on the front desk where patients can access it. Or in your front lobby, you're asking for patients' personal information that other patients around can hear. You need to not do that. So you can change maybe the way that you ask, maybe make it written, or ask for other identifiers that might not be as revealing as social security numbers and things like that. So those are the Leo principles: limit, encrypt, obfuscate. Now, we want to talk about online and offline, right? So when we're talking about security, we're not just talking about computers, but we are. We're talking about laptops, desktops, servers, smartphones, dumb phones, PDAs, CDs, DVDs, thumb drives, hard drives, receipts, invoices, notepads, trash, phones, fax, internet, Wi-Fi, everything. Every single thing that you have must follow these principles, because if you don't, that's your weak point. Now that's your weakest link, you're going to get hacked that way. So we'll start with online. 2 really quick tips. All of your web forms that you're communicating, your patients are communicating to you from, those need to be encrypted with SSL. It's very simple to do. It's costly to do sometimes, but basically if you do it, it's no burden on the patient and you can do it fairly easily, and that encrypts the transmission of the information from the patient's computer to your computer. That does not necessarily mean that the storage is encrypted. You need to encrypt that too. But this way, all those routers that we saw cannot intercept your information. Secondly, as we talked about email, never volunteer PHI over email. All right, offline. So again, we have to think about human behavior. If you ever have something that's too difficult for you to implement without a lot of hoops that you have to jump through, it's not going to work and you're going to stop doing it. So you need to think about things like, are we putting passwords on sticky notes and sticking it on the computer monitor to where anyone that walks up to it could grab the password and break in? Are we writing down patient information when they're calling us on the phone on a notepad and then translating it to our computer system? All these behaviors, now you have a sticky note that you put in the trash, that goes in the trash, someone picks your trash, they're going to steal the information. So you get information over the phone. Are you asking for private health information over the phone where someone could hear you, maybe someone could hear the patient? Both of those give you an opportunity to be hacked. You should not do that. So when you follow the Leo principles, online and offline, you can be as comfortable with this line, right? But actually you don't want to be that comfortable, because the second that you're not paying attention to security, that's when you become a victim. So I want to challenge you. First of all, before you leave Germany, I put 1 week, but I think before you leave Germany, as you're on your flight home, as you're leaving the hotel, every single one of you can change your passwords and make a secure password. That's easy, it's free. Secondly, the Electronic Frontiers Foundation, it's a wonderful organization. They have this link here, and by the way, anyone that wants the link to this presentation, it's on the web, and I'm happy to give it to you. But that article on Electronic Frontiers is a great article, and it will give you a lot of details about maybe if you want to know more about traveling with private information or how it works on a cell phone and very specific details on certain questions you might have. But I also want to give us a common sense check. So just because I'm telling you how important security is doesn't mean that we need to go back to that ridiculous gate in the front of our yard that's useless. We need to have common sense restrictions on what we're talking about. So if a patient wants to communicate with you via Facebook or Twitter, I'm not saying do not communicate to the patients through other methods. Even though those might not be secure, we already talked about the weakest link is the weakest link. So if the patient's the weakest link, there's really nothing you can do about it. If they go around talking about that they had an IVF procedure, that's their right to do. So if they want to communicate with you that way, you're welcome to accommodate that and still provide the same level of service that you've always been providing. You just need to be aware that if you're volunteering that information, now you're the one that's violating it. The patient should be the one that chooses. And again, keeping it simple. If you lock your door on the way out, you cut out 90% of your crime. Same thing with your practice. If you can make it simple to where it's just as simple as switching a key on your way out, that's going to work and that's going to do a lot better for you. So when you're approaching security answers, if the answer comes back and it looks really complex and you don't understand it and you don't think that it's going to actually follow through with it, you need to keep hunting. You need to keep demanding a better level of security. And just a quick summary, if you did want to take, I know a lot of people are taking pictures, so this is the one to take pictures of. This is kind of your punch list of things to do. Ask questions until you understand it. If you can teach the topic, you understand it well enough to protect your practice. So every single one of you can become an advocate for your practice and have every single person on your staff review this presentation, review the Electronic Frontiers Foundation, and you will become a much better practice. And again, it's the weakest link, so you need to be the one pushing this out to your practice and making sure they care about it.